Hey guys, welcome to Careers Uncorked. This is your co-host Sid.
And this is your co-host Sharfuz. And Sid, dude, another Wednesday, man. How's it going, dude? How's your day so far?
My day has been absolutely insane. I found a spider on the wall, and now it's lost in my bedroom. So I honestly don't know what to do. If you see me twitching halfway through, it's because I'm like actively looking for the spider.
Better? Okay.
Yeah. But how about you,
Well,
Sharfuz? How's your day?
I mean, dude, it's good. I just I moved to a new apartment, so my room is like I still have to set it up. But that's been exciting, dude. I just want to say, dude, just promise me if the spider bites you and you turn into the new Spider-Man, just promise me that you're gonna wear the costume when we do this. Okay, don't go undercover superhero.
Will do. We'll rebrand the show, powered by Marvel.
Pardon, Marvel, that. But dude, so I moved into as I told you, I moved into this new apartment, and my roommates were asking me like, "What is Careers Uncorked? Like, what should I tell them?"
You should tell them it's a really awesome place where we have conversations with some amazing people. One which we have today, and our guest is super, super amazing.
Yeah.
So I think that's what you should tell them, and tell them like, do not disturb for like the 1 hour that we have blocked for the session.
Yeah, I just want to say like, whatever you do not walk into my room that 1 hour we have blocked. So that's the time of the week. But
Yeah.
dude, I'm super excited for our host, for our guest today. Also of the host as well, which is me. But dude, very quickly, dude, 4th of July, 4th of July coming up, dude. Do you have any plans? Very quickly, like, what do you think?
Me? No, I actually am trying to stay home, trying to stay away from COVID, and I hope our guests are as well, because I know there's going to be a lot of people going out. I live in Texas, and it's really bad out here, so
Yeah.
please stay home, guys. Please stay safe.
Yeah, no, for sure. Same, absolutely. But also a public announcement, guys, please. Oh yeah, announcement is that we're gonna be taking a break this weekend to celebrate 4th of July, so we'll not have a session this Saturday.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, I know, you guys are really disappointed. That's what you really want to do this 4th of July weekend. But yeah,
keep you guys going. We're going to be back on Wednesday, so make sure to tune in. That's going to be a huge, huge session again.
that would be another big session. Yeah, and dude, like I think like today's, I'm so excited about our guest today. Like Daniel, like, dude, how would you describe him?
Daniel's like amazing. I met him, and like the first moment when we spoke, it was like we just bonded. It was crazy. We spoke about Gary Vee, we spoke about all these things, and then he told me he really likes dancing, and I was like we're like the same person.
Dude, you just want to like bring Daniel over, or like just talk and just put him in the backstage for now.
No, let's bring him over. He's probably like, oh yeah, these guys are just going to talk amongst themselves. So I'm just going to bring Daniel over.
Yeah.
Hey Daniel.
Oh, hey, how's it going?
So happy to have you here, man.
Thank you very much. And like honestly, I was like laughing so much, like in the backstage. Just with everything. Also, like one thing that I've noticed is like you have this whole Careers Uncorked thing, but where's the wine bottle?
Dude, I know.
Okay.
No.
I never said this was water. I've been drinking this every time. No, this is water, just saying.
I see. So that's the secret behind your charm.
Yeah,
that's why we're always so excited for these sessions. We like finish the bottle of wine, and by the time our guests are here, we're like, oh yeah, this is gonna be awesome.
Love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for having me here.
Of course. So here, Sharfuz, how about we get the session kicked off? Because I know we promised our guests 45 minutes, and then we keep them post dinner. So
yeah.
So to get us started, Daniel, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us about your college, your degree, and what's essentially your story.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I would say like, there's a lot of different components to my story, just like there is to everybody's, right? So on the surface level, I would say, I'm a computer science student at the University of Rochester, currently, heading into my senior year. And right now I am working at Autodesk as a software engineer intern, and, just doing some other things on the side as well.
Love it. Doing things on the side. Wait, quick pivot from there. Sharfuz, you want to show us your shirt?
Well, I want to show. Oh, that's my shirt. Oh yeah.
It says side hustle.
So
we're wrapping you.
Okay, it's like I love that.
So thanks for getting the shirt though. It was a birthday gift. He sent it like 3 months after my birthday. But
better late than never.
Yeah, no, I think it was too early for my next birthday. Yeah, you thought about it.
Exactly.
But dude, Daniel, thanks for that quick intro. And I'm curious to know, man, among all your experiences in college so far, like what are the most significant experiences that stands out to you?
Honestly, I would say, all of the sort of like interactions that I've had with people, those are,
Mhm.
I think, what have led to a lot of my own sort of like personal growth and professional growth as well, right? So, you know, uh, just like earlier, we were talking a little bit about this whole aspect of, we actually go back a while, So, for example, I was involved in this project called Barter Out, and like through that, just by meeting my RA, Vlad, shout out to Vlad,
Yeah,
just by that, getting involved with that and like learning more, eventually I was able to, get some training and stuff like that with the NSA Fire Corps, and that's where I met you, right? And that's one of the things that I think I like the most about college so far. It's just like there's always like a lot of little connections that get made between people, and you never really know where those things are going to end up at, right? Like I never would have expected, like, oh yeah, out of meeting you there and all of those sort of things, like I would, you know, end up here.
Very,
yeah.
very true.
No, absolutely, Daniel. I think it's always about. I think people are play such a big influence, right? All the people you met, and I think for me that was a big aspect of why I wanted to come to America for college as an
Totally.
international student. Just for the people, like I think the people really shape who you are, and I think that's a really interesting thing you said. So as of now, quick question. So far, how did you like go about just navigating your major and your academics and some of the interests you have in college?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I feel like sometimes I have a little bit of like a hot take when it comes to like academics and navigating the major.
Yeah.
So, for example, right now I am, working as a software engineer, and part of that work also involves, for example, like web development, right? So things
Mhm.
having to do with with React and JavaScript, all of those sort of things, right? And one funny part about that is that I never took the web development class, right? All of the stuff that I know about web development is stuff that I got out of just like self-teaching and being involved with the project I was telling you about, Barter Out.
Mhm.
And so my hot take when it comes to classes, right, is really knowing sort of like what is it that you want to get out of sort of like your experience and out of the learning that you're getting, right? So I was never too stressed about my grades, right? I was never aiming for, okay, I have to have the 4.0, right? It was more so like, I am engaged by this class, I'm interested in the topic, I'm going to learn it, and along the way I'm gonna get, you know, a decent score, right, or a good score, right?
Yeah.
And so, for me, it has like more so been about the learning and sort of like how can I best gain out of being in this environment that's like Sharfuz was saying with like these amazing people, you
Mhm.
know, and opportunities. How can I best make the best out of it, right? And sometimes that has come as a way of like, okay, I'm balancing things.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think that's definitely a really big aspect. Like, and I like the fact that you mentioned like how web dev wasn't a class you took, but you figured out your passion and your interest in that, like going above and beyond that what you were learning
Yeah,
in
I
there.
think something really interesting is that you mentioned that it wasn't the class that taught you these skills, and that's so relevant because even today, like actually working in like technology, I took so many courses for like different things, but the skills that I really picked on were actually from projects that I was really interested in working on and spend a lot more time actually learning new technologies as opposed to what they taught me in class. So that's really, really interesting.
Exactly. Absolutely with that, and that's the thing, right? Like when you expose yourself to just going in and doing something,
Yeah.
you're gonna get a lot more learning, right? Because in a class it's sort of like safe, you're just like, okay, these are the requirements, as long as you fulfill that, you're fine. But when you're working on a product, when you're working with people, that's when you're like, okay, I have to figure out a lot of things because it goes beyond me and my class.
Yep, exactly. That's so cool.
Yeah, no, for sure. Definitely, I definitely respect just working on this projects and getting experiences. So Daniel, like you mentioned, Border Out as a big project that taught you a lot of skills. Like, so question there. So what I'm curious to know is like, what drove you to go beyond this? Like just beyond academics and just want to work on these projects like that. Like, what was the big incentive or the drive there?
Right. I mean, I feel like there's many different ways of answering that, right? So, I mean, one of those things was, just as you were saying, right? Like coming to the US, like uh, for me, that was like one of my big objectives, coming out of high school.
Yeah.
It was just like, at one point I was like, I want to head into the US because there's so many opportunities there. All of technology is there, and I just want to sort of like be in that world, right? And back when I was in high school, I was like, okay, you know what? If like undergrad in the U.S. doesn't work out for whatever reason, I'm gonna study, like PhD, masters, whatever, and then be able to head over there, right? Because
Yeah.
I was just like so excited about it, right? So coming here into the U.S. as an undergrad, I was like, wow, like this is amazing, like
I know.
I'm already like ahead of schedule, and
Yeah.
so I gotta just keep on going with that momentum, right? And for me, also it was like this aspect of, I eventually wanted to like get into the industry and all of that aspect, right? So that was like a big motivating factor. It's like sort of like looking for opportunities, and I mean, at that point, it was sort of like the opportunities that ended up looking for me because it was my RA Vlad that was just like, hey, you know what? Like I'm working on this project. It's in JavaScript. Do you know anything about it? I was like, I was so naive back then, like not really knowing all that much, that I was just like, JavaScript? Yeah, I know Java, so I should be fine.
Yeah.
That's
And so that's just I ended up like getting involved with that, and from that experience, I was just like, okay, this is like an opportunity for me to grow. It's an opportunity for me to learn new things. Let me just like try my best, right? And I knew I didn't know anything about web development back then, but if I put my head into it, if I put my mind into it, I thought I could learn it, and I guess I did, right?
true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
So to jump on, I think you mentioned your current internship, which is at Autodesk. Tell us a little about that. How did you sort of go through that process of like applying, interviewing, and recruiting for that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. For me, I think it was a really long journey, a little bit longer than I wish it would have been. Mainly because coming off of the last summer, right? Basically, it was like a almost like a year-long thing, right? So I was coming off of my last summer. I that last summer I took on like two different projects, sort of like related to research, and then uh, what I did is like, okay, I applied to a bunch of companies, right? And I just keep on applying and applying, right? As a lot of like computer science students do, right? Like they just
Yeah.
apply to a bunch of companies, right? And uh, another thing that I did was that by that point I had gotten involved with this club called SHPE. So SHPE is, for the people that might not know, it's the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and amongst many other things, sort of such as promoting diversity and empowering Hispanic students, or students in general. One of the things that our chapter does is to take people to the National SHPE Convention, and that's where you get to not only meet with a bunch of different
Mhm.
professionals in a bunch of different fields, but also you get to go to a career fair, and that's where I was also able to talk with a bunch of different people, among which were a recruiter for Autodesk, right? And that was my first connection to Autodesk, and it was really funny because before that time, I did not think of applying to Autodesk. I was just, I don't know, like I had used its software before,
Yeah.
but I didn't even like think about it, right?
Yeah.
And that what happened there was that we actually went to a dinner that was sponsored by Autodesk,
Hmm.
and there was a presenter that was just going over, all the different cool technology that it is, being developed at Autodesk.
Yeah.
And that is what caught my attention. And then from there, I was just like, you know what, like, I'm really interested in this company. And, fast forward, a couple of interviews and stuff like that. Just before Christmas, actually, I just get a call and it's like, okay, you know what, like, we want to offer you a spot.
Wow.
I was like, I was really excited about that. But then what ended up happening was that the team specifically that, I was sort of like being offered wasn't necessarily something that I was 100% in alignment with.
Hmm.
Right. So I really debated it with myself a lot. And I was like, you know what? Let me ask if I can switch to a different team. Right. And I was really worried because maybe I was going to throw everything out of the window by doing that. But I took that risk, and it turned out after, like, 3 weeks of like not hearing anything,
Mhm.
you know it was like, okay, some more interviews, and then finally I was able to solidify it, right? So
Yeah.
it was a bit more stressful than I would have liked.
That's crazy. Wait, so during this time, were you actually actively interviewing with other firms? Or did you have any pending offers when you were like, oh, I want to switch teams?
So I didn't have any pending offers. I was, waiting to hear back from some other people. I was interviewing with some other companies, so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
But also, this was around the time that, like, the whole pandemic was sort of like catching on around
Yeah.
like March,
Okay.
or a little bit before that. So it was just like really stressful because I didn't even know if like this was going to affect it or not.
Exactly. That is
Yeah.
crazy. So, like, I think two big takeaways for me is, first of all, you going to that conference, that convention, meeting so many people, interacting with companies, which again, people don't really think about like on the day to day, like, oh, maybe I could work at this company or that company. It's just like the big ones that come to mind, constantly like, oh yeah, these are like top 10, top 20. So that's really interesting. And I feel like you going out of your way, making that personal connection. Did you follow up with the recruiter after the conference? Like, what was that exactly like?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, right. And so when I first sort of like introduced myself to a recruiter, I was, the elevator pitch mode, right? So I was just like, basically like 30 seconds just going like over my entire, professional, background, basically, right? Saying like, oh, I've done this, I've done that.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's like, okay, but I don't know how to get myself noticed by recruiters. And, it was asking that question that then, prompted the recruiter to be like, you know what, you already did get noticed by a recruiter.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and then from there I just like follow up with them. It was I was just like, oh, I'm so happy to have met you. Thank you very much for allowing me to reach out to you, so on and so forth, right? And things went on from there.
That is absolutely crazy. So I think that's huge, right? Like having the courage to go talk to someone. I think that's very big, especially in person. It's a lot harder than reaching out to someone on social media,
Oh
any
yeah.
given day. And then second of all, I mean, like it's amazing. Like you got this offer like early, like Christmas. It was like a nice Christmas present for you.
It really was. It really was. Because like by that point, I was like so stressed about everything, because like over the last 2 years, I had basically spent a lot of time trying to craft a path, craft a journey, so
Mhm.
that I could get an internship, so that eventually I would be able to land a job out of college, right? And so for me, it was like something that was really stressful because I was sort of like doubting myself. I was
Yeah.
like, hey, like, did I do something wrong with like, did I not take the right opportunities? Did I had a wrong focus, so on and so forth, right? And that just as you're saying, it was like a very nice Christmas gift.
Yeah.
I just like go into a room, I like have that call 30 minutes, and then I go out and I'm just like there like celebrating with my family.
It's, that is so awesome. I think my other takeaway from this was the fact that after receiving an offer, you still considered like, oh, this is not really aligning with what I want to be doing in the future. So you went back and you were like, wait, can I actually work in another team? Which is again, it's part of like negotiation because you've already received an offer, right? But that's crazy because a lot of people are very hesitant to have those conversations and not a lot of resources available on how to handle such situations. But you taking that initiative and making sure that it follows through is really, really interesting to me.
Oh
Shifra,
yeah. Yeah,
No, that's
sure.
what I was gonna say. Like, in my, like, most people would just be happy with their offer, just be grateful. Oh, I got this offer. Let's not mess it up more. Let's not try to ask more. Just be glad. But I think there's a good that was good confidence, which is important. And I think that itself is very impressive. That you are like, no, this is not. I like the company, but this is not exactly what I want to do. Put me here. I could add more value over there. So that's what's pretty awesome, dude.
Yeah, and I think something that would really help the audience understand this, again, Danielle, if you feel comfortable sharing, is like, how exactly did that conversation go? Did you just like tell the recruiter like, oh, I want to be doing this technology, or did you like actually do some background research on the team that you want to be in? Like, how was that like?
Right, yeah. So I mean, it was a little bit of what both of you were saying, right? So on one side, I was really scared, right? Like, I'm not going to say, oh yeah, I just had a bunch of confidence, I felt great, right? Like, no, I was actually, really scared that I was going to throw all of this out, right? So I think that would be another piece of this puzzle. It would be that, sometimes, there are things that are going to help you, but you're just scared of doing them, right? Or you're afraid that there's something's going to happen, right? But the thing about, for example, courage is that you're courageous because you are afraid. If you just were acting recklessly, then you would be a fool, right? Because it is normal to feel some level of fear, some level of stress when facing a situation like this, but it is the courage that gets you beyond that in spite of that fear, right? So that would be one aspect, right? And then the other aspect, on the more technical side, it was just like, I reached out to a recruiter saying, exactly as you said, I feel like I would be able to add more value by doing something else, right? And so this opportunity was more on the site reliability side of things, on the web, DevOps sort of things.
Yeah.
I was like, I have more experience on these other things. Would it be possible to explore a different role, right? And so from there, I just had to have the faith that if if things were fine and they actually had the spot, then that I would be able to stand out in between the different candidates and then be able to land a position.
Yeah, that's wow. That's quite the story, man. I got to say it. Haven't heard too many of those.
No, really, no. I think that negotiation part is pretty awesome. Like, just how you change that, making sure you do something that you want to do. That's amazing, dude.
For sure, it's like you're shaping your own career, right? Which is the most important part. Like, you don't want to be thrown around and just be like, oh yeah, now do this, now do that. So that's really important.
Absolutely. And like one thing that I would add there is that I'm not entirely sure what it might be like for other people, but I feel like maybe Sharfus would be in agreement with me here that as an international student, you're coming into the US and you're crafting your own path. You're deciding where is it that you want to go, and you're not just deciding to have the good things, right? You're not just deciding to have like, oh yeah, you know what, I'm working at this company, it's so cool. No, you're also deciding to put in the work to get there, because you're coming into the US and you know no one.
Yeah.
At least that was the case for me, right? Like, I'm coming into the US, I know no one. I don't know what the culture is like. I don't know what networking is. I don't know all of these different things, and I'm like, you know what? If this was my choice, I took the choice to go out of Mexico and go into the US and try to effectively, as you were saying, craft my own path and go for the things that I want to be doing. And sometimes those things change, but I was still crafting the path that was unique to me.
Very, very true. Wow, that is awesome. I can also resonate to that in some extent, because when I came here, I had no family. I essentially came for college. My brother was studying in the West Coast for a year, and then he left back for India. So I'm sure Shafuz has a lot more in common than that, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's Daniel, you're 100% right, because it's just like I think the challenge of just leaving everything behind and start somewhere new, that's a big step. And then I think when you're an international student, you got to be careful about the decisions you make, because there's a high opportunity cost. Like, there's a lot of sacrifices that you made for each of the experiences you're having, right? So definitely there's like the hustle. Okay, like, I've done a lot, I've given a lot to be where I am. all the effort and all the sacrifices, and I want it my way. Like I should
Exactly.
try to have it my way because the stake is pretty high.
Very true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? Because like if you don't have a job, by the time you graduate,
Yeah, you get
it's really stressful.
it's very stressful. Yeah, you can't stay in the country. You don't have a buffer zone that I could stay in America and like do just chill and like someday I'll get a job. It's fine. So it's beyond the
Exactly.
financial support. It's more about other stuff as well, right?
Very, very true. All right, so I'm really, really enjoying this, but we unfortunately do have to pivot for time constraints because there is a much more important topic coming up. Before we do move on to that,
All right.
Danielle, just for the audience here, just quickly, could you tell us what Autodesk does, and also just talk about your role? Like, what are you doing over the summer? Like, how are you working, and what's
All right. Yeah, sure. So I feel like we've been well trained for this sort of situation because we had a lot of orientation, meetings and all of that, right? And so just like say for example, whenever you want to look for something, look for some piece of information, you go to Google. Whenever you want to buy something, you go to Amazon.
Yeah.
Autodesk is trying to craft its path into this aspect of whenever you want to make something, you go to Autodesk, right? And to the different kinds of Autodesk software, right? And they don't just have things for the creative aspect of, oh yeah, you know what, I'm a 3D artist and I'm going to make this, right? But they also have offers for architects, engineers, all sort of different people that make things, right? And sort of like it's that tool that facilitates bringing your vision of whatever field you might have into reality, right? So for them it's like all about make anything, right? And so like empowering people to make things, right? So that is what they're doing. And as for what is it that I am doing with the team, so one of the aspects that people run into is like sometimes you don't always know everything, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where you might go and reach out to the company or to the support and so on and so forth, right? So there's this widget and there's this utility that Autodesk has internally, that's basically a way for allowing people to find what is it that they're looking for, right? The information that they're looking for. We call it the universal help module, and I'm sort of like in that team helping out with the integration of experimentation, right? So in order to give another tool set to all of the different UI people, product people, to know what this is the path that the product should be taking based on data, right? Or a different type of data set of data points.
That is really, really interesting. And how is it like working remotely? I don't think you anticipate that you'll be working from Rochester.
Yeah, no, absolutely, right? Like I didn't expect this at all. Like before things were confirmed, maybe like not even a month before the end of May or the start of May when my internship started. Not even a month before that, I was still planning on going to San Francisco and like renting a place there with a couple of friends, right?
Yeah,
And
the West Coast
what's
life
up?
on and the beach and like just chilling.
Oh yeah, absolutely, right? I was like so looking forward to it, like, oh, San Francisco, so nice,
Oh,
amazing city, right? And then it was like, okay, you know what? Like you're gonna be working from home. I'm like, okay, right? But along with that, some nice things came about, right? So, for example, they were really nice, and they actually sent me a MacBook, so I would be having the same development environment as all of the different engineers in the team.
Wow.
Yeah. So big shout out to my manager there. And then from the other aspect is like they've been an amazing team when it comes to collaborating, right? Like we get on Zoom calls and then we're all there talking together or discussing different aspects. If I have some sort of question about the code base or something like that, they'll be like, oh yeah, let's get on this Zoom call real fast, right, and talk about it, right? Or we also just like catch up sometimes and be like, oh, what are you doing for the weekend, so on and so forth, right? So it's been a really good environment, and I think that's one of the biggest things that I've had in regards to this, right? It's a great experience of just being there, and the people are very open to just talking and to being reached out to. Like one big thing that happened was the my managers just reach out to me to just talk and introduce himself, right? And I'm not sure if that's something that happens at a lot of different companies.
I don't think it does.
Yeah,
That's absolutely insane. And I think I was actually talking to one of my friends earlier today, and I was like, tech companies have the best work culture, and I find it so hard to replicate in like a remote environment. But what you're saying is they're still like managing to continue that whole like friendliness and like being able to provide all the perks of working in the office, right? And also like for the viewers, if you guys missed out on Shafuz's expression, like scroll back like 45 seconds on the live stream, you'll see his face drop when Danielle said MacBook, because Shafuz and I are still using Windows laptops.
Yeah, I still use a Windows laptop. My work laptop actually got fried this weekend. So, and I asked for a replacement laptop, and to help fix it, they sent me a motherboard. I still have that motherboard. I don't know what to do with it. Yeah.
Wow, that's lovely.
Figure it out yourself, kind of a deal. But enough about that.
Just before we do move on, I think there's an awesome comment from our audience. So Fernando says remote work will open possibilities that have never been available before, especially for immigrants. More opportunities, cheaper to boot, depending on your remote location, of course. Exactly. Like Rochester is a great place to be if you're trying to save up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Fernando, huge shout out. I think that's a great insight, and others tuning in. Check out what Fernando and his team at Best Being is doing. That's some incredible stuff that they're up to. So definitely check that out.
All right. So this is a little nervous. I'm a little nervous. That's why I said this is a little nervous.
Dude, nobody cares. So get started.
This is the most important segment. Okay, I say this all the time, but this is very, very important.
Very important.
It's the rapid fire.
This is why we're doing this in the first place.
All right.
Yeah, exactly. And Danielle, just to level set here, like me and Shafuz are at par, and whoever wins this round of favorite co-host actually has to do a dare, or like whoever loses has to do a dare. So the winner is like from this session.
All right.
Daniel, I just want to say that it's not about doing this thing with me. I'm just very happy that I'm here with you, man. And when things open up again, I want to take you out for dinner.
All right. You said it publicly. Like one thing is saying it privately, but now everybody knows.
Now it's recorded.
It doesn't matter to me, but when things get better, I will take you out for dinner. Okay?
Sounds good. I'm always down for food.
Yeah, and our team at the back, I'm not sure if they're on right now, but if you are, guys, comment from Careers Uncorked if anyone's watching. They've prepared some really, really scary dares for us that we're going to have to do for the person that loses. So it's going to be interesting. But to get us kicked off, let's start simple, right? Let's start easy. What's your favorite dancing style?
Oh, okay. That has to be breakdancing. Hands down. So that's actually... I like the question. That's how I got it started with dancing. Just the breakdancing club here on campus, and that was just sort of like my introduction. And then from there, I just kept on getting more interested in different styles.
Wow.
Yeah, awesome, Daniel. Okay, next one. If you had to dance right now, which song would you pick?
Oh, first one that comes into mind is like "Let's Party Like It's 2020." It's an electroswing song that was published, like this year,
Yeah. That is crazy. Would you want to ask your segmented question too?
Oh yeah. Who would you pick as your dancing partner, me or Sid?
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to go for Sid.
Oh, come on.
This is awesome.
I love
this. All right. So Danielle, if not computer science, what would be your major? What would you be doing?
Oh, okay. That's really funny. Back when I was in like, I don't know, middle school or high school, I was actually considering linguistics.
Huh.
Just because like I used to watch a lot of like YouTube linguistic videos, and it's like, oh, like this linguistics people, they're cool, right? Like they're talking about all these different things having to do with linguistics. And it's funny that a lot of linguistics now also involves computer science, right? So I feel like either way, I would have ended up somehow like here.
Wow. That is very true. Like both the majors, I think they go really, really closely hand in hand. So that's really interesting.
Yep.
Sure, on to you.
Yeah. Next one. Book or podcast recommendation that has an impact in your life, or your favorite one.
Oh, there's a lot of them. I actually have like a list of there, so I'm gonna give a couple. So it has to be, difficult conversations.
Hmm.
That's just like a very good book on, how to have difficult conversations. And, I would also say 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson is also a really good one. And then Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. I would also say that's another big one.
Awesome. Definitely say we'll drop that in the comments or in the takeaways.
Yeah, dude, I'm sorry. I'm actually taking notes because Danielle actually recommended a podcast to me earlier and a book, and I watched it. It was amazing. So these are actually solid recommendations. I'm actually taking notes for myself.
Things haven't read yet.
Wow. All right. So that's awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that, Danielle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Up next, what is your favorite Rochester food? Would it be a garbage plate or wings over?
It has to be the garbage plate. If I had to choose between those two.
Between those two.
True Rochester there. All right, next one. Favorite Autodesk software?
Oh, favorite Autodesk software? I think I would go for Maya, just because that's what I used back when I was in high school.
All right.
Okay.
All right. My question for you: if you were Simon Sinek and you couldn't return back to the country, what country would you choose to settle in?
Oh, if I couldn't come back to the US?
Yeah, you can come back to the US. Or I mean, you could, but you'd be in jail.
Oh, okay. I would go maybe for Germany. Because actually my aunt is living there right now, so
wow.
At least I would have a family member there.
Dude, family member, you'd have like amazing cars. You'd have that whole no speed limit thingy. Like that's awesome.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. So where do you wish you were if not in Rochester?
Oh, that's a really hard one. Just because I've loved just like the environment that I've had so far here at Rochester. But maybe maybe actually Portland. Yeah, I'm gonna go for Portland. Yeah, really fun memories of Portland there. Yeah.
All right, sounds good.
This is it, Danielle. This is the question that we've all been waiting for. Who is your favorite co-host, Sid or Sherfuz?
I'm gonna go for Sherfuz.
So he did convince you over the dinner, huh?
Yeah, the dinner, that's like what gateway to the soul,
Okay, which is that is awesome.
That was genuine. I've never been so happy about something, man. These things are really I'm just happy when I got my diploma or something like that. 5-4. Daniel, right. We're definitely doing the dinner thing when I come back to Rochester and things are normal again. All right, we're gonna chill, bro.
That's great.
Sid, you might.
I'm actually gonna freeze right now and log off, and you guys can do this by yourself.
We'll invite you to the dinner, Sid. No, that's okay. But Daniel, thanks for being such a great sport, man. This is awesome. I love it.
It's a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah, but yeah, dude. And I think this is one of jumping into our main segment. And something we really want to talk about and like just get an insight is like you have had a very incredible life, just like coming into college and just you had a very practical life of some of the challenges you have dealt with so far. So I'm curious, Daniel, like, so what are some of those like significant curveballs that life threw at you that you had to like overcome? It could be like as you were coming to Rochester, like to America, and just coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when it comes to those things, to these sort of things, like I think it's very important to sort of like realize and like incorporate them into your own life and into your own story, right? So, for me, it has been, a lot of the big challenges have actually come before I was even in college. So, for me, when I was 2 years old, right, like my my father left my mother. So my mother was left to raise me as a single mother, right? And for a lot of people that is a very very hard thing, and it was certainly also for me, right? Like this whole aspect of you know why would something like that happen, right? Like are families supposed to be loving and all of that sort of thing, right? Like even from that get-go, it's sort of like made me just not feel great about just living in my skin, right? And so it took a really long time to sort of like get to the point where I could even say these words, right? Because back when I was a kid, just saying things like this, like, oh yeah, my father is not there, or my father was never there,
Mhm.
those were things that I could just not utter because my voice would just get cracking and I would almost start crying, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes I would actually start crying, right? And so that for me was a first one, right? But then, life has this weird tendency of just throwing a lot of things at you sometimes, right? And so when I was 8 years old, very tragically, my mother passed away uh, very few days after Christmas, right? And so this for me was sort of like the second biggest hit for me because it was one of those things where I thought things were getting better, building this family with my mother and all of that, and then suddenly uh, this sort of like anchor that I had in my life gets taken away, right? And I was just left without any sort of explanation. I think that oftentimes we think of, you know, why do things happen, right? Like, or why do things happen to us, right? And oftentimes we're trying to find an explanation to these sort of things, right? To these unfortunate things, right? Like, okay, why did a pandemic happen, right? Why did it happen to me? Why did I get laid off? So on and so forth, right? And sometimes things just happen, right? And that is where resilience and your own strength has to come into play, right? And not just your own strength, but also the strength of those that are around you, right? And I think that's another big aspect of surrounding yourself with people that are a positive influence on you and that are people that are going to help support you and help you grow, right? And so I honestly owe a lot of where I am and who I am now to my friends and my grandparents who you know through thick and thin helped me, and they were there to encourage me and to help me grow, right? And to actually show me that you know there's great potential, right? So for a really long time I was not the best performer academically
Mhm.
in my friend group, and that is partly what motivated me to keep on learning and to keep on moving forward, right? Aside of like spending such a great time with my friends, right? And so those two things I feel like were the two big curveballs that life threw at me before coming to college. And there's a lot of work that needs to happen for you to come from something like that and then you know say, what, yes, tragedy stroke, and now it's time for you to do something about it, right? And so oftentimes we when faced with these sort of situations, we have a choice, and it's a hard choice to make, but it's a choice that eventually helps you grow and helps you develop further, which is to just say, what, yes, these things did happen to me, but I can't be left to dabble in them for too long because I have to keep on moving and I have to keep on growing. And for me, partly the motivation behind that is that I didn't want to, at that beginning stage when I was first realizing those things, I didn't want to let down my grandparents, right? They were thrusted into this situation, and like they were not expecting it, right? They had worked their asses off, like just so they could give the best sort of life for my mother and my aunt. Like I just heard stories of how they would work 2 or 3 jobs, each one of them.
Wow.
My grandma and my grandpa, so that they could afford, their education and, like the food, the house, so on and so forth, right? And you know, those sort of experiences, those sort of details, just sort of like really made an impact on me and made it so that, what, eventually I was just like, I have to keep on moving forward and not delve on this too long, and think about things that I can be doing to improve my life and my situation, right? Because it is possible to improve your situation, and it is possible to move forward past any sort of hardship that life throws at you. And once you hit what you consider to be your rock bottom, there's only one direction to go, and that is upwards.
Very true.
And hopefully along the way, you're also bringing other people upwards.
Danielle, those are the biggest curveballs of my life that I've ever heard. This is so intense, and I think it couldn't be said better, right? Like I always try and compare my experiences to other people, but this is not comparable, period. But I
Yeah,
think you left it off at such a positive note.
yeah.
It's so motivating for so many people watching right now. So
There's
thank you really so much for sharing that experience. I think it means so much to both Shafut and I, and of course the audience watching.
yeah. I don't know how to like. I think that's so much to unpack, Daniel, and you just said it so like from your heart, and
Yeah.
that's the best. Says something, and it's just like I personally have like the privilege that I have both my parents, they're still alive, and so I cannot put myself in the shoes, but even myself, like one of my biggest worst nightmare is being in America. Like, oh, what if I wake up to a call that one of my parents has passed away, and like it's crazy, like how you just went like through all that. Like, how did you talked about resilience, and it takes insane amount of resilience. Like, how did you wake up in the morning, get up from bed? Like, it's a weird question, but really, man, how did you do that?
Yeah. I mean, and I would say like this wasn't, something that happens in one moment, right? Like this is not something that, you just go through and one morning you wake up and, you're fine, right? Like it's one of those things where it takes time for you to come to this, moment of acceptance, right? And the thing is, I sort of like pose a lot of questions to myself nowadays, in the form of like, you know, having a choice, because I feel like when all of these sort of things happen, we are often left feeling powerless. We're often left feeling like, there's nothing that we can do about it. There's nothing that can be good about the situation, right? And so whenever some sort of like tragedy or curveball or something like that happens, that's when you want to say, what can be done about this situation, right? Or how can I look at this situation, or even what sort of things can help you get grounded, right? So for me, back when I was a kid, 8, 9 years old, for me, the way that I sort of like stayed grounded was, just to find my, like my happy place in video games, right? And I just kept on playing, and for a really long time what I was doing was just sort of like getting distracted and not thinking about these sort of things, right? But as I was growing up, I think for me it was, things were becoming a little bit more apparent, like, what, sometimes these sort of things do happen, and it is the power that you have to decide how you're going to look at things, right? And you know, it is certain that you can never compare things, or experiences between people, right?
Yeah,
But at the same time, like whatever your worst day is, like that is still valid, right? Like that's still your worst day, right? And the thing is, if you wake up the next day, then that means that you have gone through your worst day in your entire life, right? And you're still alive, you're still there. And it's sort of like, realizing those sort of things, that what, you are still there, you're you're still moving through, and you know there's just that aspect of, you have the power to ground yourself. And earlier I mentioned, this book by Jordan Peterson, right? And one of the things that Peterson says is this idea of being the like the most reliable man at your father's funeral, right? So yeah, of course, this was not an idea that I came upon back when I was growing up, but I think to me that is one thing that is very true to myself to a certain degree, because when all of this situation happened, and as I was progressing forward, one of the things that grounded me was my family, and was my desire to help out my family, and to not, you know at the beginning it was just like, oh, not disappointment, not be a burden, so on and so forth, right? But as time went on, and things got slightly better, and slightly better in my interpretation, eventually came to the day that I am here now, talking about all of these things. And now I'm thinking of, how can I best support my family, and how can I be that sort of grounding section, or that foundation that my family and my friends can rely on, right? So for me, that is like a very big thing, right? Like that, this aspect of helping other people, and being there for other people, right? So that is something that I feel oftentimes can help you, because when you realize that there is power in what you can do, there is power in you helping out a friend, or helping out a stranger, supporting other people, then that's when you realize that you have power to influence your environment, and influence those that are around you, and you'll have a positive impact. And eventually you can just keep on progressing, and keep on having a positive impact on your friends and your family all around, in whatever way you think is best.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure if that sort of like answered your question.
It answers a lot of questions of life. It answers a lot of questions. That's thanks for sharing that. I think, that was very insightful to hear all that, and yeah, I kind of like a little bit lost the words now, but it's just like the how you went through it, and like you mentioned, like how you used to play video games to distract yourself, and just embracing it little for little, and then the positive reinforcement you got by being there for other people, and helping other people, and being there for your family. I think that's very powerful. Just taking the ownership, taking the lead, being the leader of it. Like, yeah, I guess I don't know what I'm trying to say. What are your thoughts?
Dude, I'm lost of words, man. Like this story, like I love how Daniel always like shares every experience in like a story, and he like makes us walk through his life, which is so captivating. And I'm still there. I'm still trying to get across, like
Uh,
capture the whole thing. It's absolutely insane. I love it, Daniel. I absolutely love it.
and this is one of the most genuine conversations I had, GBH. And and dude, it's crazy. Said I guess one thing I'm curious about Daniel is that about through all of this, right? The person who you are today, and you talked about like the mindset you have, right? The strength you grew. Is there like a particular like one or two defining experiences that helped you like find yourself, or like slash I guess the other side of the question is like how did you discover yourself as a person? I guess that's what I'm trying to ask. Yeah,
Mm.
that's a better question.
Yeah, I get you, and I think it's a good question, right? Because like, I feel like oftentimes we don't really take the time to sort of like figure ourselves out, right? So for me, you know eventually, at the very beginning, when I was first sort of coming upon this new information, right? I was just heartbroken. I was just like, how could something like this happen to me, right? Like, had I not experienced enough, had I not, you know, had a bad, like enough of a bad time, like, why did this had to happen to me, right? And so, eventually it led that led into, me wanting to sort of like try and explain this, right? And say, okay, well, there must be a reason. And, the more and more I dug into that aspect, right, the more I sort of like started to realize, maybe there wasn't a reason, right? And so that, that aspect of, just looking for answers, that eventually led me into finding, podcasts and finding audiobooks and stuff like that. This was back when I was like, middle school, high school, right? So a couple of years ago. And, just by that discovery, one of the big things that eventually happened was that I was able to really take a look at my understanding of myself and my own, thought patterns, right? So sometimes, let's say that you are worried about you going into a job interview, right? And you're thinking, okay, what are they going to think? Are they going to think that I'm a failure? Are they going to think that this or that? If I screw up in a question, right? But the thing is, like, those are just ideas that, like your brain is telling you, right? And just as it can tell you that, it can tell you other things. It can tell you, you know what, like, you don't have to care about what others are thinking about you. You don't have to care about, you know whether or not you screw up by doing this or by doing that, because, in the end, you know they don't know you, right? They don't know your story. They don't know where you're going and why you're doing the things that you're doing, right? And so the only real person that can be, judging and thinking about all of those things is you, right? And I think that we should, develop like a positive relationship with ourselves, right? And so for me, so like answering that question that you were saying, one of the big things that was compounded over time was just, exposing myself to different ideas and exposing myself to books, podcasts, so on and so forth, or, even like YouTube videos of people talking about different experiences that they've had, because that eventually led me into realizing the different sort of like thought patterns that people could have, right? And how you could get out of different situations, right? And so there is a lot of value in putting a little bit of work, one day at a time, right? Because if you only get, if this classic idea, right? If you get 1% better every day, if you work on something every day, then eventually over time, things are just gonna be so much better that you can't even imagine, right? And I think it is having that sort of like trust in yourself and trust that, what, I can just keep on working on things and I can, you know, try and slowly, bit by bit, start this healing process, or slowly, bit by bit, start this self improvement process that will eventually lead you to just having like a totally different experience than what you have in that moment. And, if you were asking for another experience, right? Because you asked for two experiences. So one of them is that aspect of, learning and, that compounded growth, you could say. The other one that I would say is, also, exposing yourself to things that might scare you, right? So for a really long time, I was someone that was like very introverted, right? And, I still think that I am an introvert. So that I've also been able to develop my ability as an extrovert, right? And so for me, the way in which this happened was that I joined the Model United Nations Club with my friends. Hey, and then from there, at the very beginning, I couldn't even speak out. The chair had to call me out and ask, "Hey, what's your opinion?" I would just be like, "Hey, yeah, you know what, I agree," but then with like trembling voice and all of that. And over time, if you expose yourself to that, a little bit, and then you keep on trying, you keep on moving in that way, you're eventually going to conquer your fears, right? So if there's something that that is scaring you, or that you feel like it's out of your reach for whatever reason, again, it's this idea of expose yourself to that a little bit, and
Yeah.
then a little bit more, and then conquers more challenges. And as you keep on doing that, you're going to improve a lot more. And to me, that had like a little bit of a crescendo when I had my graduation, right? Because during my graduation, or actually before my graduation, I had never wanted to like dance at the parties and stuff like that. I was always sort of like, yeah, you know what? I'm not like that. Like, I'm not gonna be doing that, right? But then during the graduation, I was like, wait a second, like, people are having fun. They're inviting me to have some fun. Like, it's fine. Like, I'm not going to see these people for who knows how long, and I can just go ahead and embrace myself, have some fun, and then just not have to worry about what other people might say. I'm just gonna go have some fun and embrace the experience.
Right,
Okay.
right. I love
Yeah.
the dancing part. I love the dancing by yourself, dancing alone, dancing in the middle of the room when everyone's staring at you.
Yeah. I was gonna say, Daniel, like first of all, like I made that because I also share the same modeling experience. I was in exactly in the shoes. I know what you mean because I myself was very introverted and I was not good with talking to people. I don't think I still am, but that modeling experience, really I did that for a lot of years during my high school, and that really took me out of my comfort zone
Exactly.
and made me more confident about it. And I think it all levels up, and I think one thing I'm seeing at the center of your growth is that a lot of that compounding growth, and then doing it by little, like doing it that 1% that you said, and like exposing yourself, um, and just doing that compounding growth, and you end up waking up as a different, better person tomorrow if you put in that work, right? Uh,
Exactly.
and I don't want to go on a tangent, but like I think one thing this what you just said makes me really think about is this one of my very favorite concept called the butterfly effect, and it's that idea that like this whole timeline. I love, I don't know, like Back to the Future is also one of my favorite movies. I love that, it's like one of my all-time favorites. So it's just this thing that if your life is going in a certain timeline, that the actions you take can really change that timeline, right? And even if you're like going through like the craziest, insane amount of challenges that you never imagined, like just working on yourself, you could really change the timeline you're going for your life. And that's like the small things create that big effect, and that's like the butterfly effect comes in. The small things make that huge impact. Like yeah. So I guess
Absolutely. Absolutely.
so. Dude, thank you for that. I did definitely really inside. It definitely speaks to me inside. So really, thanks for sharing all that.
Very, very true. So, Daniel, I know we've spoken previously about the whole concept about dancing through life, but if you had to summarize this, what would dancing through life mean to you?
Oh yeah.
Life.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely, right. And so, I mean, I very deliberately chose this title, right? Because I feel like there's many different ways in which you're able to make this analogy, right? So, sometimes you are, you're given a situation, you're dealt some cards
Yeah.
that you cannot control, right? And so that might be, for example, you're at a party and there's like some song and some music that you're just not interested in, right? You're just like, no, I don't vibe with this music. Like, what the hell happened here? Like, who even is the DJ, right? So that is one mentality that you can have about it, right?
Yeah.
Or you can say, you know what? Let's go. Let's have some fun. Let's embrace the moment and just go and and have some fun and enjoy the experience and enjoy the situation that you're in, even though it might not be what you expected or it might not be what you would want, right? But
Yeah.
the thing is, at the same time, you can still sort of like create the environment that you want, right? So that's another aspect. For example, you might be in a situation where like, okay, nobody's dancing, right?
Yeah.
People are just there, acting all shy and stuff like that, right? But then you can be that person that is just like, all right, everybody, let's start dancing, and so you can start to hype people up and push them a little bit so that everything becomes better, right? And that is that aspect of you know you can take little actions, you can do things to improve your situation. For example, make the party more fun, right? And then in some other times, you might have to you know take a step back. Maybe you have worked a lot and you have to chill down for a second. Maybe switch to a different song, dance in a different sort of style, right? Because sometimes just the situation doesn't blend itself to that particular thing, right? So that's the other aspect of you gotta adapt, right? Because sometimes your plan just doesn't go the way you want to, right? And that's where, for example, breakdancing and freestyle comes into play, where you know if things are not going according to plan, time to pivot, time to change things around and move in a different way to still enjoy the situation, or to still move forward in whatever way that might look for you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
really interesting. That's making most of the moment essentially. Like,
Dude, that was meta, dude. That was really meta.
yeah, I like the whole party aspect.
Yeah, I've definitely danced on dance floors where I was the only one, but that's a different story.
You know,
Yeah.
that's your food's back in college essentially.
Yeah, but you know what? Like you can still have fun, as long as you're having fun. Like, who cares if other people are just there, just being all boring and stuff like that, right? Like you can have fun, and if people are coming along with you and having some fun, then even better, right?
Yeah. No,
Right.
absolutely, for sure, for sure.
So Danielle, I think it's time to jump into our next segment, which
All
is recommendations for people who are currently suffering due to a loss of a job or an internship, or have been laid off due to COVID. So,
right.
in your perspective, I know you're still in college. So, like, what would be your thoughts of like what should a person do, and maybe if you were in that situation, what would you do over the summer?
Oh yeah, absolutely, right. So I actually had to think about this because this was a scenario that I was thinking might happen, right? Like I was thinking either my internship was going to get canceled or I was not going to get an internship, right? And so for me, one of the aspects that has helped me out a lot and has helped me get to the point that I'm at is to think, there's always opportunities around you, right? You just have to go looking for them, right? So for me, back when I was in sophomore year and I was trying to look for uh, summer experience related to research, I was like, okay, I just gotta look for it, right? And I was like, okay, I could go for the CS thing, right? But sometimes they have different requirements for American students, so on and so forth. So let me look for something else, right? And so I started talking with a bunch of different people, and I eventually landed with one experience with the library where I would be doing some software development for them, right? And then I was like, okay, yeah, that works, that's good, but yeah, I also want to have something that even more related to research. All right, let me think about it, and it's like, okay, I can reach out to the medical center, right?
Mm.
And I can reach out to the medical center. I can reach out to people that are working there in their the research departments and see if they have any sort of opportunity that I can, get involved with, right? And say, you know what, I might not know exactly that thing that you are doing, but I know how to program, and I'm really interested in learning. Let me
Yeah,
go ahead and try and do it, right? So that would be one aspect, right? Like always thinking that there are opportunities available out there, and even if you don't find them, you can still make that opportunity for yourself, right? So you can get together with friends and say, you know what, let's execute on this idea that we've been talking about, or let's just come up with an idea and try and do something, right? Because even if that idea, like quote unquote, doesn't succeed, you're still winning. You're
yeah,
still winning because you're still learning, you're still improving, right? So anything that you do that is progressing you towards your goals, that is going to be something worth doing, right? And of course, you're gonna have to exercise some caution between choosing between different options, but you sometimes can try out something, right? Like you can go and learn a course and then you realize maybe that course isn't something that you want to be doing, So then you can pivot and say, okay, maybe not that, but let's try this other thing, right? So it would be this aspect of always thinking that there's opportunities available, create your own opportunities if you don't find any,
Mhm.
and then be judgment free and feel like you can pivot and change the direction in which you're heading, be it in a short-term plan or long-term plan or something like that, based on what you want and where you're going. And then to tie all of those aspects together, I would say also the aspect of hard work, right? And you gotta put in the work if you want to get somewhere, right? So for me, like, that just really rings true to myself whenever I think about my grandparents and all of the work that they put into to support the life that my mother and my aunt had. Just because my grandpa had three jobs at the same time. He would grade like 1,000 exams from different students, and
Mhm.
then my grandma would have two jobs as well. Both of them are teachers, right? And so just that aspect. And then when I'm thinking about myself, I'm like, oh, you know what? Like, I can still give more, right? Like I can still get there, and there's more work that I can be doing, right? And so when you combine all of those things, that arms you with an ability to say, in spite of the situation that you might be in right now, or the world might be in right now, there is something that you can be doing, and there's work that you can be putting in to get you close to where you want to be, or closer to where you want to be.
Very, very true. And I'd also like to reiterate what Fernando mentioned earlier. Due to COVID, I think a lot more opportunities opening up for people in various locations, because originally they were very location based. So if you went to a certain university or you were at a certain location, well, that's the only possibility of you working in that role. But now with
Yeah.
jobs going remote, I think it's opening up a lot more doors in that context.
Yeah. Also, I think Fernando also added a comment. I don't know if he's still tuned in, but he just wanted to say thank you for your candidness, and your story showed a tremendous amount of strength and resilience. If you're ever looking for opportunities in the tech space, feel free to reach out. Sharpus has my number. Do I? Oh, yeah, I think I do. Yeah,
I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that, Fernando.
great guy. So definitely connect with him.
Yeah,
Um,
guys, if you're watching, if you guys do want to reach out to Shafuz and I to get on the panel, because we're, as you can see, some people get jobs. Comments,
yeah,
if you want to sign up for the live stream, I mean, totally reach out to us.
work
Right?
out. And this is not the first time that it happened. Um, Daniel, thank you for sharing all that advice, man. I think that was incredible. I think I'm curious, man. So you've all these life challenges you've faced and this resilience you have shown, because I think the problems you have dealt with are really practical problems and like life problems. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of students are going through a lot of these problems out there, like, and that affects their mental health, which is a big part of our
Yeah.
lives. And we don't talk that enough about that enough in the professional world.
No.
So what's your I don't know, what's your advice and recommendation for whoever student out there who's in their college dorm right now, like trying to deal with some maybe some form of this
Yeah.
challenge that's just beyond academics, something to do with life. Maybe they've lost someone, maybe they're going through some depression phase. I don't know. What do
Yeah.
you what's
Absolutely.
your take on that? What's
Yeah.
your advice?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think, Sharefus, I think it's really good that you're bringing this up, right? Because as you were saying, right, like, not a lot of people, and we don't spend a lot of time talking about this aspect, but a lot of people get affected by it, right? So there's many different points of view, and there's many different approaches that you can take here. One thing would be, just try and cultivate a positive relationship with yourself, right? So for me, for a really long time, it was like, you know what, like, maybe I don't deserve love, I don't deserve this, I don't deserve that, right? Like, those were stories that I was trying to make for myself, trying to, in a way, explain what had happened to me, right? But as I went on through life, and I kept on experiencing more things, and I kept on meeting more people, I realized that part of it was part of, like, the way in which I was looking at things. And so cultivating that positive relationship with yourself is going to be really helpful, and it's going to be something that is going to allow you to move through and past any kind of obstacle. So that would be one. Another aspect would be just try and have like a really positive environment, right? So maybe there's some sort of like family situation, right? Or maybe there's some sort of you know social thing that's going around in your community, so on and so forth, right? Well, maybe you can control that for now, but what you can control is what happens when you get into your room and it's all you, right? And so try and make the best sort of like positive environment for yourself, right? Like for example, I don't know if you can tell. So right here, I have a poster. That's one of my favorite paintings. It's by a German artist, and to me, like that is just like a piece of art about moving forward and realizing there's challenges ahead, right? But then at the same time, just like embracing them with calmness, stillness, and saying, you know what, yes, I'm going in this direction, right? So make a positive environment with yourself. The music that you listen to, all of those sort of things, like they add up, right? Like the more positive environment that you can make for yourself, the more you're going to be actually able to believe in your ability to move towards a positive direction and actually you know improve your situation. And then going along with that is surround yourself with people that are also positive, right? So uh, people that are going to support you, are going to help you, and people that are also sort of like moving in a similar direction to where you would want things to go, right? Because this aspect of you are the average of the five people you spend the most time with. There's some amount of truth to that, I would say. And so that is certainly something else, right? So I would say it's more so about being aware of your environment and the things that you can do to improve that environment and that mind space as well.
Thank you, dude. I think that was really good point from that, especially that like that loving yourself and just being having a so positive relationship with yourself. I think that really applies to a lot of that will prepare you to go through a lot of challenges, emotional, mental health, anything like that. That's a really good thing.
Exactly.
And definitely, yeah, average of the people around yourself, right? That's definitely a valid statement. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think my biggest takeaway from this entire conversation has been Danielle still in college, junior, turning senior.
Yeah.
He's invested his majority of his life in learning, and that's what everyone needs to do. You need to keep learning, actively keep learning, like surround yourself with the right people.
Yeah.
Happiness, all these things, it's hard. It's not easy. Everyone has their own struggles, but making sure
Yeah.
you learn and you keep growing through that process is very, very important. And Danielle, like, it's amazing how much you spent in sort of educating yourself about all these various things, right? And like overcoming a lot of these challenges in life that are like seem impossible for a lot to like fix or like overcome. So really, really thanks a lot for sharing that experience. And another comment from the audience, actually, Ali mentioned, thanks for the wonderful words of advice, and it's being vulnerable. That's key,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
yeah,
No.
yeah. And yeah, so sorry, go ahead, Sherpas.
No, I was just gonna say, I think that really helps people to connect and really understand the stories, really learn from each other, and that's something what carries Uncorked. That's why we wanted to do this in the first place. We wanted to have this genuine, vulnerable conversations with people, and and just not only about how to fix your resume. I mean, that's there, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
these are conversations that makes a person.
exactly, right. And like so I feel like sometimes we get away from that aspect, right? We get away from that idea of like whoever you're talking with, you know, they have motivations, they have dreams, they have goals, they have a story, right? And everyone that you're talking with has their own story and has their own story that has led them to where they are right now, right?
Yeah,
So that is another aspect, right? Like I think as we've talked before, Gary V is really drilling down this aspect of empathy, and I think he's right on the spot on that side, right? Like having empathy to the people that you're talking with, and maybe you might be in a difficult situation, be it with people, be it with just their environment,
Yeah.
but you can still have that positive mindset and respond with the kindness to that, right? And another aspect said to what you were saying,
Mhm.
is this aspect of learning. Yes, I spent some amount of my life learning. That is in part because I realized the value of learning just from my grandparents, and you know all, all of the investment that they've done in that, right? So my great grandparents, so my grandparents parents,
Yeah.
they you know they were in a town. They didn't know how to read and write. They were not in the city. They would do just like um, you know bartering basically with people, uh, so on and so forth, right? And eventually they were like, what, uh, we're gonna offer a better life situation for our family, and so they moved into the city. And then even though they didn't know how to read or write, they tried to give the best sort of environment and the best sort of situation uh, to my grandparents, right? And then my grandparents, they worked three jobs, two jobs at the same time, to
Mhm.
then be able to give a better education to my mother and her sister, right? And so that aspect of education, I think it really rings with me. But also realizing that you're doing it, you're learning, you're developing, you're moving into your professional career, all of that sort of thing. You're doing it on one side for yourself, because you're trying to live the life that you want. And if you're moving into a career, or if you're moving into something that you don't want, then you should change that, and you should go into something that you do want. And then at the same time, you're also doing it for other people to a certain degree, be it for your current family
Yeah.
or your future family. Either way, it's not just you that's coming along into this journey, it's other people as well.
Very, very true. Wow, this is awesome. I kind of want to just stay here and keep listening. But I think it's time to wrap up. Before we do, there's a quick comment, Danielle.
Oh
We
yeah.
spoke about a little job offer, but here's also like someone we've got a potential customer who's willing to buy your book right now. So you better get started working on like that book about. I think you've got so much wonderful, wonderful advice. So
Ali is a great brand builder, so it should help you market your book and build a brand behind
yeah.
I'll be sure to reach out. I'll be sure to reach out.
it for sure. Yeah.
So I'm
So
gonna bring up the closing slide. Shirfuz, you want to talk about your takeaway?
yeah, I think this is great, Daniel. I think this is a conversation, as I said, like this is one of the things that this was a very genuine conversation, and thank you for sharing all those insights and some those life hard-earned lessons from life that you and how you grew up as a person. It kind of shows like age is just a number. It's the experiences who you are, who that shape you with your maturity and stuff. Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
this was amazing, and a lot of things for me to reflect on all the comments you said. But yeah, Daniel, any lasting closing remarks you have, just in short, like for our audience?
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I would say is that I'm always open to for people to reach out, right? Like you know, personally, I am a great believer in just giving. And so if there's something you want to talk about, if something resonated with you and you want to talk about it, I'm here to talk, right? And I'm here to give my 5 cents, right? Like I don't believe that I have all of the answers. I certainly don't. I'm always learning. But if you want someone to talk with about some aspect of the professional side, or some aspect of the emotional and like resilient aspect, I'm always available, right? So I think one way in which we improve our situation as a whole, you know, beyond my personal situation or anybody else's personal situation, but the situation of society,
Mhm.
is by being willing to give the best, and to you know be willing to offer help. And I think that is something that right now it's very much so needed, given everything that is happening in the world and in the United States.
Very true.
Absolutely, for sure, for sure.
Very well said. So to wrap things up, make sure to reach out to Danielle on LinkedIn. We've put his link out here. You can also scan the QR code if you guys are millennials and like try to use technology a lot. So just pull up your camera and do that thing.
Yeah.
Uh, Again, like Danielle said, feel free to reach out. He's a great conversationalist. I promise you personally that you will not get bored of the conversation. You will really appreciate it.
Yeah.
But yeah, apart from that, go check out Careers Uncorked. We have this episode and a lot more episodes on our website. Shafuz, anything from you?
Yeah, no, definitely follow, check out our website and follow us on LinkedIn.
What
Yeah,
about Twitter and Facebook?
huh?
What
Also,
about Twitter and Facebook?
go ahead on Facebook as well. And yeah, like if you have any takeaways from this session, just feel free to share and tag us. And yeah, we're happy to connect anytime. And yeah, Daniel, this conversation was supposed to be 45 minutes, but damn, it's slow when you're having fun, huh?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, we just can't
Yeah,
keep going with this. And, it's been a lot of fun. So
for us too. Thank
I'm
you.
really grateful for the opportunity.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you, everyone. We're shutting down.